So here are some specific tips for iOS. iOS, there is again a specific space where you enter in your keywords. And there is a 100 character limit for that line. So you want to make the best use of the space. And so you want to separate the characters with a comma. Separate the keywords with a comma and leave no space in between each of the keywords because that's just taking up excess space and you don't need any space there. All you need is a comma and then enter in your next keyword right away. And shorter words are better than longer words. So if you have a word called let's say you wanted to rank for the keyword challenging, because you have a game that is challenging and people may be searching for a challenging game. So the word challenging is quite a long word, and when you're limited to 100 characters, the word challenging actually takes up a lot of space. So you may want to find ways to shorten it. There might be like a synonym to challenging that would be a shorter word, or even for challenging, maybe shorten it to challenge, or don't rank for that word altogether and find something else that's shorter. Because shorter words, you can then rank for, you can show up for more results with shorter words because you'll have more words in your keyword list. Another thing is, and I don't think I put it in these notes. Yeah, I didn't put it in these notes, but whether you use a plural word or a singular word. So, for example, if it was keyword or keywords, you can use one or the other, and Apple will generally give you the term for both the plural version and the singular version. So if you were trying to do keyword or keywords with an S, I would just put in keyword without the S, and Apple and Google will generally give you both of those terms, whether there's an S or not, and it's smart enough to do that. Now, be careful with competitor names and trademarks, and this is really important because there's been a lot of cracking down on this, both on the Google and Apple side of things, as well as for brands that are trying to protect themselves, and they have asked certain apps to cease and desist using their trademarks and their brand names. Many people have done this and they've gotten away with using brand names, but more often than not right now, Apple is removing keywords that are targeted towards brand names. So if you tried to submit an app and in your keywords you tried to put in candy, crush, or just try to target those two words, candy, crush, they've made it very clear now that they will remove those words or reject your app because you're trying to compete for Candy Crush. And that goes for many other terms like Flappy Bird, Angry Birds. I'm sure there's if you tried, I think, Instagram, a lot of those terms will be rejected because they are trademark terms. Now, the frustrating thing with this is that they don't have a list, like a blacklist of words that you can't use. And so oftentimes it is a little bit of a trial and error. But if it is a really hot term and it is trademarked or branded, there is a very good chance that it will get rejected. So just keep that in mind. You may want to try it out and risk it and see if you get away with it. But in general, in my experience, popular trademark names just get rejected by Apple. And there's two ways they do it. They either just flat out reject your app and tell you to resubmit it with new keywords, or they just remove the keywords altogether without really letting you know, and they approve your app, and your app goes into the App Store with those keywords removed. And so those are kind of the ways that they've gone about doing it. So here are some Android description tips. So again, as I mentioned before, Android in the Google Play Store, they don't have a section for keywords specifically. And so what you need to do is you need to put your keywords inside the description box as a write-up. And so you want to craft your description based around the keywords that you choose, which is fairly obvious. But what I would recommend is you want to write it similar to a web article that's optimized for SEO. And so if any of you have had any experience writing writing content that's been optimized for the web, there are certain guidelines you want to follow to optimize it so that it ranks well. And I'm going to go into more details in a future video about this. So right now I'm just going to go through a few quick tips. So your highest targeted keywords should be in the first 350 words. And I showed you in a previous video above the fold. And usually in the description, the Google Play Store lists the first 15 lines of your write-up above the fold, and then it cuts it off and says if you want to read more, you can click on a button and it will show the remaining part of your description. But you want to have all your highest targeted keywords in the first 350 words of your description. And then all your secondary keywords you want to have in the remainder of your description. And the most important keywords you probably want to repeat once or twice, but you don't want to stuff it in the sense of you don't want to repeat it multiple times to the point where it doesn't read well. So again, don't spam, don't keyword stuff. Your description should sound natural. And actually, Google Play has an article about what you should do with this in terms of some guidelines that you should follow. And the link is here. I'll just click on it really quickly for you to see. So here's Google's article on keyword spam. And this is specifically for the description. And so I would encourage you to read through it. They have here a best practice, and this is what they suggest for the description, as well as a bunch of guidelines like keep it brief, don't use repetitive keywords. I'd encourage you to take a look at it yourself. This is the best practice type of description. What they don't want and what they may reject you, or not reject you, but they may contact you to change, is if you try to add in repetitive keywords, similar to something like down here, which they've highlighted in red. You can see game, games, fun, funny, child, children, and it goes on. So they don't want something like that. They don't want unrelated keywords. Again, in this red box here, using branded names. This game is as addictive as Angry Birds. You know, they're using all these Katy Perry, Lady Gaga. They're using all these branded keywords and references. Excessive detail and references to other apps. So they've got a whole list here, and they're stuffing the words again. So I'd encourage you to read through this article. It's not very long, and it gives you some really good tips on how you should be crafting your description. So here are some keyword selection strategies, and you want to use You can use competitor names and app titles, but again, be careful, because if it is a popular branded or trademark name, you may run into some trouble with either the Apple iOS Store or Google Play Store, or you may even be contacted directly by the publisher themselves for you to cease and desist. So this is a very fine line as to how you target those names in app titles. Another way to select a keyword is relevant descriptive phrases. So an example of that is targeting match 3 game versus targeting Candy Crush. And so a descriptive phrase is match 3 game. That's the type of game style Candy Crush is. So match 3 game as a keyword phrase would be allowed, whereas Candy Crush in most cases would likely be rejected. But having said that, there's a lot more traffic with app titles. But this is tricky because you're walking that fine line of whether you're going to get in trouble or get your keywords removed because you've targeted a branded or trademarked name. And just to illustrate this, I'm going to just show you really quickly. Now this is Google Trends. I showed you this before, but let's say we were, we wanted to target, we made a match 3 game kind of like Candy Crush. And so let's search for match 3 game and see what the trend is for match 3 game. And you can see from 2007, that's been actually increasing in traffic over time, which is a good thing. So match 3 game sounds pretty promising. But if we were to type in the term Candy Crush and search for that, let's see what results happen here. So you can see the red in terms of volume, search volume, completely dwarfs the term match 3 game. So the type of search traffic for match 3 game is down here in this blue line, whereas the amount of people that have searched for the term Candy Crush just completely eclipses it. And so again, that just illustrates my point about how branded app title names are searched a lot more, even in the App Store, compared to descriptive title names. So there's a lot more traffic with app titles, but it's tricky, and you will have to do a little bit of trial and error here to find that fine line. And usually what that fine line ends up being is a combination of the two, which is a combination of descriptive phrases, but also of some app titles. So see, the other strategy, and a very good strategy, is see what competing apps are using for their keywords. And so you want to essentially spy on other apps and see what they're using for their keywords, and consider using the ones that they're using, especially for successful apps. Consider what the successful apps are using as their keywords and using that for your own. And I'm going to go into more detail about how to do that in a future video. So one last point for the iOS App Store is that the review team is not consistent. So one of your apps may get approved for Candy Crush, and then the next 5 apps you submit in trying to target Candy Crush might get rejected. And you may see other apps that have been approved for certain terms, and yet your app consistently gets rejected for that same term. And arguing that other apps have that term to Apple is not good enough. And so you kind of have to jump through their hoops and abide by their guidelines. And so it's one of those things, is if you want to play in this Apple App Store, you just have to follow their rules and live with the fact that they are not consistent. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how to select keywords that will bring you a lot of traffic. And in a coming video, I'm going to go through a live demo of how I do this whole app title and keyword selection strategy, just so to really illustrate and hone down exactly what I'm describing in these last few videos.